Gentlemen, did we review it? Did we work on it? Yes?
Since the last class?
Yeah. No? 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 No?
What time is the
Yeah.
Thursdays and Sundays usually?
But the Chazara.
Yeah.
But you have the notes. You have something to read from. All right, we will go back a line or two just for connection and continuity. We are on the bottom quarter of the page 165. And the line starts with the word Yiyeh Bozeh Oinek. Bezehu horotzen habom min haseichel. We just concluded discussing the rotzoin that is created by seichel. We discussed in the line of trying to understand this, what rotzin is, what midas are, how rotzin is created by the seichel, and so forth. The yis rotzin, okay, we are after the middle of this line, the yis rotzin, but then there is another kind of rotzin, sholomaylo mehaseichel. A rotzin that is above of seichel. We've discussed in the past under various circumstances, opportunities, the union of seichel. We explained that seichel is not to be confused with just plain logic, where you figure things out that are essentially external phenomena, external fact, like a mathematical problem, or anything when you figure out how to get from one place to another place. This is not referring to this is not the seichel that creates a rotzin. This is not the seichel we're talking about. This is what's called a seichel murkav. I never used that term before. Seichel murkav means a seichel that is combined with other things. In other words, you observe a certain phenomenon and you understand how it works. This is not the real, that's in the Inyan HaSeichel. The Inyan HaSeichel, the real Inyan HaSeichel that we're talking about, the Seichel that creates a Rotzoin, is a Seichel that initiates, that innovates a concept, innovates. What? Starts from scratch. The example that we always use on the simplest level is the seichel that we all understand, that a human behavior, how a human being, simply because he's human, how he has to behave. And he has a seichel, he sees that up his seichel, he's supposed to eat with a spoon, not put his face into the plate. He's supposed to walk around, not walk into people, and things like that. This is a seichel that is rooted in the fact that he's a human being, and the seichel creates the whole idea. And we always explain that we should, to understand the concept, that when a person understands that he should eat with a spoon, even though practically speaking, eating with a spoon is also easier, and and you don't get dirty and all that. There are logical explanations why you should do it that way. But that's not what gives a person an understanding that this is the way to eat. What he understands about it is that this is the human way to eat, not because of any advantages that it carries with it. This is an example of seichel, but it's not the seichel ha-nefesh. This is what's called human seichel of the nefesh ha-sichlis. But there is a nefesh aspect in it. In other words, it's not exclusively logic. There is an essential life to it. In other words, there's a certain point in this seichel that the seichel says, this is right, and I don't need to explain why. This means an essential seichel.
This is within the seichel, which comes from the ratzon, which comes from the seichel.
Right. So when you say the ratzon comes from seichel, means we're talking about a seichel, an essential seichel that recognizes and explains and understands certain meaning. And as a result of that seichel, there is a ratzon. The seichel explains, recognizes that this is a good thing to pursue, a good path to pursue, and as a result of that, he gets a ratzon to pursue it.
Not because of why.
Not because of practical, not because of advantages.
Just to go back to the idea that we said something is right, and then something is right that it's right, meaning that it makes sense logically that a person shouldn't eat with their hands because they get dirty. Why don't you want to get dirty? I don't know. It's just not right. Like that point where you just kind of say, it can't be this way, and you have to go with what your logic kind of pushes you in that direction.
Well, you could say, at that point, you could say what you're saying, that a human being shouldn't be dirty. But there itself, why not? In other words, you can pursue it further. And it has to come to a point, if it is a seichel, it has to come to a point where the reason is because that's the way it is. That's the right thing. This is my seichel telling me. If you don't have seichel, I can't explain it to you. That's me. There's an expression in Yiddish, but it's an expression that's used in Chassidus. A kop kann man nicht aufstellen. Did you ever hear that expression? That you can't put a head up on somebody's shoulders. If somebody has a head, you can explain to him that which makes sense to a head. But if he does not have a head, or if his seichel is not operational, you can't explain it to him.
Kann nicht aufstellen?
Yeah. Because not the seichel does not mean exclusively that which can be explained practically and say, oh, you see, there's a better result. That's not seichel.
The saying go?
I'm sorry?
How's the saying go again?
The saying, a Kopf kann man nicht aufstellen. A head.
But I mean, that point where it says, because you're going to get dirty. So I want to be dirty because a human being shouldn't be dirty. Why shouldn't a human being dirty? There comes a point where it's there's no longer, is that the idea where you're saying like that even within the ratzon of logic, that there comes a point where there's an atzmis to this ratzon.
It's not ratzon, seichel. As a result, this seichel creates a ratzon.
Mm-hmm.
This seichel creates a ratzon. This seichel ultimately creates a ratzon that he wants to be clean. Because his seichel He recognizes in the seichel that you're supposed to be clean. And again, not because of any advantages. I have a simple rule. Anything that can be explained to a computer is not seichel. Because computer has no seichel.
What about when you get to the point where you can't explain it any further, right? When you say...
What?
You get to a point when you can't explain it any further, right? Like, we were saying before that human beings shouldn't be dirty. And, that's just the way it is, right? So when you get to that point...
Right. You can't explain it, and it does not need explanation. This is what's called axiomatic. It makes sense to me. And it doesn't need explanation. It's true because it's true in my seichel, not because I can show you why it is true.
This is the idea that we're talking about here. This is the...
Right. This is the seichel that we're saying, that the seichel creates a rotz. It's the origin of the rotz. Okay, we'll pursue further now. Then the is rotzen shalamayla mihaseichel. Therefore, when you say that there's a rotzen that's above seichel, it means that you have a rotzen, and not only was it not originated by seichel, you don't know how you got this rotzen, but it actually is l'mayla mihaseichel. You can't relate to it at the level of seichel. What's in this rotzen? Why do I want it? What's in it? What's drawing me to it? That's mean the rotzen shel l'mayla mihaseichel. Rotzen shel l'mayla mihaseichel, we do not have worldly illustrations of that. Because everything in the world is within human concept, if it has any value. But in Ruchim, Avodas Hashem, we have such a thing, like the din of Mesiras Nefesh. Seichel cannot relate, cannot understand, cannot grasp the din of Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh is something which is deeper than Seichel. And yet, he really wants it. Rabbi Akiva said, we're talking about Rabbi Akiva's Talmid, Rabbi Akiva said, you know that Rabbi Akiva was killed at Kiddush Hashem. Everybody knows that, right?
Right, yeah.
Huh?
They raped his skin.
Yeah, well, that's a torture in addition to the kill, but he was killed by the Romans at Kiddush Hashem. And Rabbi Akiva said to his Talmidim at that time that my whole lifetime I was hoping for this. Because it's a mitzvah in today's Parsha. In this week's Parsha, the mitzvah was Kadishim, V'lezechal Hashem Kodshiv, V'negdash B'sei B'nei Yisrael, the mitzvah of Mesiras Nefesh, Al Kiddush Hashem. That's not a mitzvah that one can perform voluntarily. This is something that Yovel Yoda, that comes to you. You can't do it on your own. So therefore, it is not something that you can kind of devise a way to get it. Like Akiva said, I was hoping for that schus to have this thing. What kind of rotzen is that? That's not a seichel dike rotzen. That's rotzen that comes directly from the nefesh. It's rotzen ha-nefesh.
But if a person realizes that his only purpose in this world is to serve Hashem and to do mitzvahs, and it's a great mitzvah to do, so seemingly you can come to an intellectual point where a person would say, right, I can't understand it, but you can 100% of a person really, really felt and understood what they were learning, they could say, any mitzvah which I'm able to come to, I'd be happy to accept. And therefore, even Kiddush Hashem, he's accepting intellectually.
It's conceivable to say that if it comes to you, you do it. But to expect and to wait for it and to hope for it, that's totally not safe. On the contrary, we say, Chas v'sholom, we should never be tried. We should never have that.
I can relate to it. There was a point in my life where I believed the best way for me to die would be serving whatever.
You know that what your comment here is incongruous with what we're discussing.
I feel a similarity.
It's not similar. I'll tell you why. Because, God forbid, we should never be in that state of mind. But what you were describing is that you were in a very despondent state of mind. You were very unhappy.
I was happy. I wasn't unhappy. I didn't think I was anyway.
What?
I was very much involved, like I wasn't sad. I wasn't unhappy. I
No.
was fulfilled. Yeah, I was serving. I was doing something like very. I was emotional about it.
Well.
I was thinking I was going to join my forefathers who protected the land for thousands of years.
Well, in that case, it's lahavdil elef avdolas. Lahavdil, the Arabs are promising their mothers all kinds of pleasures out there. A person can run away with his imagination, in an unrealistic way. Seichel is not imagination. Seichel is a reality. It's not imagination.
The Ratzon above Seichel.
No, but
You're talking about Ratzon above Seichel.
if you're talking about Ratzon above Seichel, it's also a reality. It's not imagination. A Ratzon above Seichel is exclusively a Ratzon that purely comes from the Nefesh.
Why do you say what I just said is not reality?
Because
It's a deep
there
emotion.
there was imagination involved. I'm going to meet up with these people. I'm going to be up.
No, not to meet up with anyone. The fact that I wanted to like not join them, like I get to meet them. Like I would. They died. Al Kiddush is like to protect their. It's a very honorable way to go. I thought it was it would be the ultimate fulfillment of my life. If I was to die in an unnatural way, would be definitely to take a bullet for my people. What do you mean? That's a reality. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Okay, but you were hoping that the bullet wouldn't come.
I wasn't afraid of it. It wasn't a problem for me.
Okay, I guess you were trained well. It's unnatural.
You can't understand. So you go through it. Maybe you have.
Right. This Rotzin that we are talking about is a Rotzin, a person who is completely involved in life. Rabbi Akiva was a Rosh Yeshiva, and he had hundreds and thousands of Talmidim. And the whole Torah Shabbat depended on him. This was not a situation where his whole service consisted in Mesiras Nefesh. His service did not consist in Mesiras Nefesh. His service consisted in teaching Torah. this whole rotzin, Ma'ala Mihaseichel, you'll see in a moment how the Rebbe explains the inyan that's L'mayla Mehaseichel. But the primary inyan is this, that there's the nefesh, the neshama, the pure neshama. The way the neshama actually is not really part of the guf. The neshama comes to the guf. And the neshama remains also, even though it is in the guf, but a certain aspect of the neshama remains above the guf. Now the part of the neshama that's part of the guf is starting from seichel on. The seichel realizes the reality of worldly life. This is where it becomes reality. But that which is above seichel is not part of reality of worldly life. This is part of the neshama itself. And there is a rotzain that emanates, that comes directly from that level of the neshama that is not through the process of seichel. Okay, let's see inside. V'hu rotzin atzmi. It is thus a rotzin atzmi, meaning where is this rotzin come from? Since the seichel did not create it, so how did this rotzin come into being? The answer is, it's a rotzin that does not need to come to being. It is essential, the etzem hanefesh. It's a rotzin that is directly coming from the etzem hanefesh, and it is one with the etzem hanefesh. It does not need to be created because the etzem hanefesh is there, so the rotzin is there. She'einei mitzad haseichel. That this rotzin is not because of seichel, because one understands and comprehends and realizes a certain thing, but this is something that this is the essence of the nefesh itself. There aren't even words to express it. Shagam im yoimru loy taimim sichli, where even if he were to be told reasonable explanations, reasons of piseichel, shemenagdim el rotzein, that oppose this rotzein, umikol mokom yirtze bozeh, and he will continue to want it, mipnei shehu lemaylo mehatam, because this is above tam, above reason. What does that mean, above reason? Like we were pursuing before, seichel, we're saying, I want this makes sense because of this makes sense about this, until you come to a point where you say, this makes sense because it makes sense. And I don't need any further explanations. It's above the question of why do you want it. The whole question, why do you want it, is not applicable. To illustrate this on our level, what we can illustrate is, we can't identify the rotzin itself, what we can illustrate is, just like we say that it is human to act in a certain way, and you cannot pursue and ask, why do you want to be human? Do I want to be human? I am human. This is beyond the created rotzin. Wanting to be human and being human is one and the same thing. There is no reason. There is no step between being what I am and this rotzin. It emanates directly from the essence of what I am. The similar thing, I say, the rotzin that comes from the etzem hanefesh, means that there is no intervening step between the etzem hanefesh and this rotzin. Why do you want it? Because that's what the nefesh wants.
What's the difference between this and that last point when we're talking about the rotzin, that shabam and seichel? The seichel that also there comes to a point where there also there's no intervening step. What I want, this is the Ratzon. This is what's wanted.
No. This is what the Seichel is. The Ratzon is based on Seichel. Why do I understand this? Because that's the way I understand it.
There comes to a point where you don't understand.
I understand it this way. No, I do understand it. But this is the way I understand it.
What about the point where we say, and why is it right? It just is. It can't be any other way.
Right. Between being right and wanting it is not the same thing. The Seichel says this is right. And then that brings out a Rotzin for it. So this Rotzin is based on recognition that this is right.
But the Ratzon, which is Lamaila
Minaseichel, does not have any recognition.
It's right or because it's wrong. It's just this is what's wanted.
This is what I wanted, right?
And if they're going to say why, you wouldn't even be able to say because there's no way.
There is nothing preceding this Rotzin.
Huh?
There is nothing preceding this Rotzin that initiates it. This is what I really want because I want. The principle of this, even though we are quite far from experiencing a Rotzin from Etzem HaNefesh, but we do need to understand in general that a human being, a Yid, especially a Yid really, since that the way our minds work in so to speak in the physical world, that everything has a cause and effect. I want something because there's some kind of reason why I want it. And it goes to such a degree, this whole perception, that the psychologist decided that everything that a person wants is the result of some kind of experience he had. Something must push him to it. And we absolutely don't subscribe to this. And on the contrary, we're saying that the human being is not based on his experiences. He has a desire to be human because that's the way he was born. This is what he is. It's like an essential desire in the person. There is in Chassidus, there is an interesting thing. It says an example of a Rotzin Atzmi on a worldly level is the Rotzin Labais.
The what?
A Rotzin for a bais, a Rotzin for a house. A will for a house doesn't necessarily mean a house. To have his own abode, to have a place that he can call his own, to live in. Rotzin Labais. And the Gemara says, Kol Odom she'ein le bayis, ein le Odom. That a homeless person, Rahman Islam, doesn't experience being a person. A person requires a house for not because of shelter, because of anything, because that is what his being a person demands, requires it. And this is directly from the Rotzin. This is a Rotzin at that level, on the human level. And there is no explanation for it. And it's not because of any kind of experience, any kind of external effect. This is what's called a primary Rotzin in a person, in a human being.
See the same thing with a person's will to live, or a person's aspiration to be a mensch. When a Jew is proud to be a Jew, and it's all kind of going along the same.
Yeah, we can examine many things, but many of the things that you said are not primary rotzen. This is in order to accomplish my mission in life. But a rotzen for Labais is in order to be who I am.
Just bias?
Excuse me?
Just the bias? That's the only thing we deal with here?
The only thing that the Gemara mentions is a bias.
So, what's the difference between the human being will to be alive and the will to have a bias? Why is one more of a depiction of
No. To be alive is a primary rotzen. To be alive is a primary rotzen, but we have very little means of grasping it. I mean, where does it manifest? It's a deep internal thing, but bias is something which we can actually see. A person can be without a house. He can't live without wanting to live, but he can be without a house, and he's not fulfilled. He's not whole. He's not. This is Rotzen Atzma. You see, in this desire to have a house, it is not merely to have a shelter, to have a place to be. Let's say he lives in hotels, comfortable hotels, and he jumps around from one hotel, and he's got money and lives in hotels. Is he then fulfilled in that level? No. He has to have a place in the world that he can call his. That's what a human being is. Sometimes we will discuss it in greater length.
So then when a person, let's say, grows up amongst wolves, God forbid, and he lives in a cave, and that's like his set home, so he'd be more fulfilled than this person who lives, at least in terms of having a life.
That person who lives in a cave will take some time. Huh?
Cave is his bias, no?
Well, he lives with wolves in a cave. It will take some time for him to realize who he is and what he is. See, this is one thing that, yes, inherently, he definitely is a human being. But does he experience being a human being? Far from it. It comes to a point where he is oblivious. He doesn't experience what a human being is anymore. And he has to be first revealed and first developed.
So that if a person is removed from society in that way, whether he's surrounded by animals or not even so, he still has a nefesh.
He has a nefesh, but he is not in contact with it.
So then it depends on other factors being.
It's like a person has eyes, but he's in the dark. Does he see? Sees nothing. But does he have eyes? He has. And when a person grew up in the dark and he has eyes, you can't put him in bright sunlight. You have to bring light to him in a very gradual way so that he can begin to realize what light is, even though it's perfectly natural. This is the similar thing.
Above all, I don't understand the connection of the idea of being above the body and above, saying above, like all these things. It's like it's.
So we explained many times. Well, I think maybe yesterday I also mentioned that a person, everything that he has to come to him through experience, through a process. If he knows something without having learned it, it's better that he doesn't know it. You know what I'm referring to, like this boy who didn't forget the holidays, who didn't forget the Torah. Everything that person learns, even though he has a nefesh and he has seichel, he can readily absorb this information, but it has to come to him through a conduit, through a system. How did I find the sound? How did I get to know it? Without this process, it's meaningless. Not only it's meaningless, but it drowns him. It becomes counterproductive.
He doesn't know how he got it.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, this Ratzon doesn't come from that experience.
No, it doesn't come from experience. But he experiences becoming aware of it. And this Ratzon is beyond reason, meaning he doesn't need, it's not coming because of some substantiation or some reason, something that explains to him what this Ratzon is about. He does not know what the Ratzon is about. Further, Umikol Mokoim, however, even there, Yesh Gam Bozeh Tam. Even in this Ratzon, there is a Tam. Okay. We're coming to a very subtle inyan. The truth is that even this Ratzon has a Tam. Subtle. Fine, very difficult to identify. We have to think very gently to relate to it. Subtle, hidden. Yesh gam bozeh tam. This Ratzon also has a tam. Before we go, why do we say that this Ratzon has a tam?
I don't know, because I thought I just figured out how it didn't have a time enough.
What?
To him there's no time, but there is a time, right? So it's above him, right?
It's been this whole time trying to figure out how there's no time in it, it's above time, and it's above reason, and now I'm going to forget what it is that I just tried to figure out.
Figure out what?
Because the whole time we were trying to understand how there's no time.
To him there's no
This is
time.
above a time. Now there is a time.
Yeah, we'll see. There is a time. Before we get to one, there's a time. We have to understand what's the meaning of saying there's time. We just finished saying there is no time. So that's why I say it's subtly. Let's approach this subtly. There is no time. It's above time. And it's above time. Why? Because it comes from the Esma Nefesh. It doesn't need the time. It's one with the Nefesh.
Time is above him.
What?
Like saying that to him there's no time, but there is a time, being that the time is above him.
No.
The time is in his reach.
Yeah. Don't wait. Don't jump the gun.
I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, okay. No. You jump.
Asking.
Okay. Right. So first, let me explain what it means to say Mikoma Kim Yesh Gam Bozeh Tam. Let me explain that slowly, okay, through a process, one thing at a time. Mikoma Kim, still we say Yesh Gam Bozeh Tam. In this too, there is a tam. And I'm going to explain what that means. We just finished saying that this Ratzon has no time. It has Ratzon that comes directly from the Nefesh. What we need to understand is that the Nefesh HaOdom, does not act involuntarily.
The nefesh.
Involuntarily means, how do you say it? Without choice, without wanting to act. Lahavdil, a dog, if you step in a certain way, the dog can't help himself, and he will act in a certain way. He'll jump, he'll howl, it's something. It's involuntary. If I push this watch, it's going to move, not because it chooses to move, not because it's aware of the movement, not because I hit it and it says, oh, I better run away from the hit. None of that. It's, huh?
Like you hit a person's knee and like the leg automatically.
That's right, the nerve. The nefesh doesn't act involuntarily. Now we say that the nefesh has this rotzen. This is rotzen for etzem nefesh. Rotzoin means, this is what I want. It's not seichel. Seichel is not, like we say, this is what I understand. A human being has to act like this. That's not involuntary. This is a choice. This is an insight. This is an understanding. It makes sense to me. I'm involved in it. Whereas Rotzein is something which I'm compelled into it. This is what I want. If I'm compelled, that means that the nefesh acts under a state of compelled to act in a certain way, and it's involuntary. But that's not the nefesh. Therefore, if we say that there is a rotzen atzmi in the nefesh, and it's l'mayla mehatam, it is l'mayla mehatam, and you can't change its mind, so to speak, by any kind of arguments. Nevertheless, there has to be something that gives the nefesh, so to speak, control over this rotzen. That it chooses to want it. Otherwise, you are describing the nefesh, not what we know as a nefesh is, a human nefesh or a godly nefesh. Therefore, it has to be, okay, so now, this is the reason we say that mikol makim ish gam b'zer tam. Because rotzen with tam is, so to speak, lower than rotzen ha-nefesh. Not higher than tam, but lower. It's involuntary. Okay? This is what he said in mikol makim yesh gam b'zer tam. V'hu hanikro tam komus. This is what is known as tam komus, a hidden and concealed, an internal tam. Lahainu, and what type of tam is this? This is tam v'oineg hanefesh. Tam and oineg hanefesh. I'll finish the line and then we'll go back to examine it. Shalamaylo mibchinas tam v'seichel, which is higher than the union of tam v'seichel. So now we have a completely new perspective on tam. There are two types of timing. There is tam v'seichel, tam that comes from the seichel, and tam that comes from the oineg. Tam v'seichel, tam v'oineg.
This is tam v'oineg. This is tam v'oineg. But it's called tam v'oineg.
Right. Tam, it has tam v'oineg. Tam that is essentially based on oineg hanefesh, not on the seichel shel hanefesh. Okay, I said we have to tackle it very gently. The word tam we usually translate as reason. What is the reason that this watch is moving when I kick it? Oh, because I kicked it, it moved. will we call this tam? The watch has a reason, has a tam for moving, because I kicked it. The watch doesn't have a tam for moving. I kicked it, so I made it move.
It's a cause.
Huh?
Not a reason, it's a cause, right?
It's a cause. The word tam in Lashon Kodesh, we use the word tam, as I said, what's the reason? What's ma tam? My time. But the word tam also means taste. The word tam means taste. And what is the relationship between reason and taste? This is what I said before, that the nefesh does not act involuntarily. The nefesh acts because it has a relationship to that. It chooses to act. It chooses to want it. Why does it choose to want it? Because it has a tam, but not a tam for it, but a tam in it. It has a taste in it. You see the difference between a tam for it? I have a reason why I'm doing this, which means I'm not doing it for its own sake. I have a reason. I'm going to gain something for it. Why do I go to work? I have a tam. What does it mean? I have a reason because I'm going to gain something by it.
In Hebrew, Dr. you say, יש לי טעם בזה.
Tam baza.
בזה, הנה.
So there's a difference between saying tam baza or tam loze. Tam loze means I have a reason why I'm doing it. I don't have a particular relationship to the action itself, but I'm stand to gain from it. When you have a tam in it, that means that I have a taste in it. This thing is something that I can relate to, that I want. And this is the difference. It's saying there is tam v'seichel and tam v'oinek. Now, seichel provides a tam for the rotzen. And oinek provides a tam for the rotzen. But there are two different aspects of tam. Seichel provides a tam, a reason for wanting it. Oinek provides a tam, a taste in wanting it. I want it because this is my thing.
Is there a relation to this that we say you can't ask a question on a taste?
Right. On taste, right. Tam.
טעם בריח אין מה להתווכח.
Right. Tam v'rayach hayim fakir. Okay, so this is that nefesh has oineg in this. The oineg provides a time for the rotzen. And therefore, this rotzen is not involuntary. It is something which is absolutely voluntary, but the nefesh wants it, it relates to it, because the nefesh has a time in it. He has an oineg in it. This is something that it relates to. This is really my thing. So this is a completely different level of tam than the tam with seichel that we said before.
טעם ושכל and טעם
Ve'oinek.
ואוינק?
Ve'oinek.
Oh, ואוינק. Both of them.
Both of them, right.
But is the idea that according to whichever Rassam we're talking about, they both have a tom, and
No,
it's
no.
just a different way of relating to that tom?
No, it's a different level of tam. There's a tam, like we said before, the seichel can grasp what a human being is, and you can describe it, and you say, okay, based on that, this is what I should want. There's a grasp, there's an understanding in it. Oinek, what does the nefesh has oinek? The nefesh has oinek from that which the nefesh is. This is not a separate thing.
So the seichel is separate and the oinig is part of it.
Right. Seichel is called a koyach ha-nefesh. Oinek is etzem ha-nefesh.
What was the first one?
Koyach.
Koyach.
Okay? Next time, Mishram, after review, you're going to have a slew of questions.
Just be like a
I'm gonna start asking you some now.
What?
Just be like a person's, not his talents, but sort of his hobbies in a way. Like if he has a type or something that's not like food or it's not a universal type, but it's something that this person enjoys. He doesn't necessarily have to excel at it, but he just wants to do it. Why does he want it? He doesn't know. He just tastes it. Like he relates to it. He tastes like that's the. Not because.
Generally speaking, anything of experiential, so to speak, everything a person experiences, there is a reason why he's drawn to it. Sometimes he himself forgets the reason, but there is a reason, because it's an external thing.
But even if you tell him the reason, you say, yeah, but it's not why I want it.
Right, because it probably went deeper than reason. In other words, he's no longer in control of himself in this well. And he went into Ratzin, he's no longer in control of it. Sometimes, we're going to see this in a while. Sometimes a person makes a decision, and this is why he pursues, and even if he loses sense of why he made that decision, he still continues to follow it, because this is how he set his mind.
He loses control even though he doesn't have to do it, he just enjoys doing it. And even though there are logical reasons why he enjoys it, that's not, he'll tell you, fine, that makes sense, but that's not why I do it. Just I have a taste for it. He doesn't have to do it.
So the thing is like this. If this is an action that has an actual experience, in other words, it's a tasty food, say, oh, I like this food. Even though there too, in truth, there is an underlying sense of experience, and it makes me feel good, or whatever it is. But if it is entirely an objective thing, then there has to be some kind of experience, some kind of a reason that he wants to prove something with this one. There isn't anything that's compelling a person, but he must want this. Except, as we said before, a person is compelled to want to be a human being. But that's compelled. That's something which expresses itself in seichel as well. He is a human being. But if it is nothing that immediately, that completely relates directly to his essence, there has to be some kind of external reason for
It doesn't relate to his essence, you're saying?
it. In America, there's a craze called baseball. And baseball is something that is considered by many people, rational people, as being worthwhile life's pursuit.
Say it again.
Huh?
Worth a life's pursuit?
Worthwhile.
Worthwhile life's pursuit. Right?
You can do it professionally or you just enjoy watching it?
I don't know. Whatever it is.
Either one.
Either one.
Apparently you don't share this belief.
It's the mile in a seichel, yeah?
The other day, there was a soldier out in Iraq who wrote to his parents that if this player such and such hits a home run, then I'm ready to die.
You're kidding me, right?
Then my life's hopes are satisfied. So you would say that's natural? You would say that comes from the seichel atzmi. That's artificially created imagination.
Brainwash.
But what if it was based
It's
on
like a
something
brainwash.
real?
There was a seichel originally in it, but it became so ingrained he forgot what that
That's
was.
right. I mean, with the seichel, it had its limit, but this has no original seichel. It's not seichel.
There's nothing rational about that. What?
There's nothing right. There's nothing human about it. Nothing human about it.
What if it was based on a real reason?
Like what?
Will to protect his people?
No. He's in. That's something
For a real
else.
reason, like
Of course, that's
stupid baseball reason.
no. That's I certainly respect that. That's no question. Absolutely, he wants to volunteer, sure, to help out his country. I have no problem with that. But to say that that once this guy hits a home run, then I'm jumping into my grave. I'm not scared of the grave. That's something else again.
Clearly.
In other words, the world has reached its perfection because this guy hit a home run. And now I've accomplished my life's mission.
All the buttons are polished. That's the one But is a person's life filled with this? That's it. That's an atzmi. Is a person's life guided by this and he's unaware of it? Meaning we said that we don't experience this at all. We can think of one example that we can say the ratzon and the bias. But is a person's life filled with
Something, this ratzon atzmi, right, this ratzon atzmi, it's not guided by it on a continuous basis because he's not aware of it and he can get lost. But from time to time when he comes to a crossroads, he will not cross the road. He will not go beyond a certain level, certain limit. He doesn't know why.
Like the Pintaliyid thing?
Yeah.
Nefesh?
Yeah. Something says, no, don't go there. Don't go there. There are stories of Eden living one Eid in a whole Goyish town. One. And his wife is a Goyke, his children are going. And you can imagine he has absolutely no knowledge at all what it means to be a zero. And the local Gala, the local priest, is trying to tell him, look, the Jewish people forgot about you. Why do you need to come over? Come over and join us. And he's resisting it, and he doesn't know why. Because I can't do that. There's a story like that. I mean, many stories like this, but there's a story that.
What about the fact that he feels like he's betraying himself?
He isn't betraying anything. He doesn't have any contact with Jewish people. Zero.
He knows he's Jewish?
He knows he's Jewish.
So then he knows he's betraying himself.
But he doesn't know what it means to be Jewish. And he doesn't know that it's betrayal. What's the difference? This way or that way. What's the difference? He doesn't know. There was a story by this, by the way. The Rebbe instructed some Bochim that went on Ekeshlichus that on the way to some place they should stop in a certain town. They had no idea what they were to do in that town. Told to stop in a certain town. So they stopped there, of course, and started asking around if there were any Jews in here. No Jews. There's no Jews in this town. Finally, somehow somebody pointed to them anew, says in this gas station, I think there's an elderly Jew. So they came into this gas station, and they walked over there to the attendant. He says, I heard that there is a Jew. Is there any Jews here? The guy looked up at him, and he says, come with me. Takes him in the back room. That's his dad. He says, Dad, they came for you. They came for you. Here, they came for you. What's this they came for you? What's the story? The story is that he was badgered by this priest to convert Ahmad Islam because he's completely abandoned by the Jewish world. And he was resisting, and every time he would push off. Finally he said, if I don't get any contact from Jews by this day, then I'm going with you. Today is the last day. And his sons came to him, Dad, they came for you. So you're asking if he's guided by it. He's guided by it, but not an ongoing. He didn't pursue to find out what a Jew means to be a Jew, what he's supposed to do. He didn't, but he wouldn't make that step.
So it doesn't manifest itself in more in smaller things, like on a regular basis in his life. It only has to.
It manifests itself in smaller things, but he doesn't know that that has to do with it. A Jew simply lives differently. He has a different way of looking at life. They say, if you want a doctor, I remember I used to work with an Italian guy. He says, if you want a doctor, which doctor you go to? A Jewish doctor. Why? Because a Jewish doctor isn't necessarily smarter than somebody else. He has a different feel for life. And he treats life with different respect. He doesn't know the difference. He doesn't know why. But he has agencies.
The guy told you
this. Yeah. No, the guy didn't give me an explanation.
No.
Yeah.
I That's what they
Special
do.
guy.
That would be a special guy, right?
My question
Okay.
is not so much does he know that his life is being led by it, but if you want to talk about the Ratzon that comes from the Seichel, so we can count 1,000 of these, so to speak, Ratzon in a day. But if you do this because of this, I had a Ratzon to get up on time, I went to sleep at